comparing fractions. To do this, we really want to focus in on these three symbols I'm going to quickly go over. You have greater than, less than, and equal to. And here are some pointers as to how to remember them. You always want to eat the bigger fraction, and you can see a little symbol here with some teeth on the end because you want to eat the bigger fraction, whichever way that is the way you want the mouth to open up. Point at the smaller fraction. You can see a little arrow here kind of pointing whichever fraction is smaller you want the tip to point at. And less than, in terms of remembering greater than versus less than, this less than symbol is kind of like an L, whereas this would be backwards. So it's just some tricks to remember them. Alright. Let's compare fractions with the same numerator. So we have 2/3 and 2/8. Drew some circles down here to kind of look at this. You have 2/3, 1, 2, and this area is not shaded. You have 2/8, 1, 2, and then all this isn't. Well, I can see here that there's a lot more shaded in this one than there is in this one. So 2/3 is greater than, again, I want to eat the bigger fraction and point to the smaller one, is greater than 2/8. What this is saying is that when you have the same numerator, the fraction with the larger denominator is actually smaller, because the bigger the denominator, the smaller the pieces. So 2/8, which are smaller than thirds, 2/8 is always going to be smaller than 2/3 or 2/4 or 2/6. It would be larger than, say, like 2/10, because the 8 makes such small pieces. The pieces, when I only have 2 and 2, they're going to be smaller. Basically what I'm saying is any number, as long as it's the same number, n/4 over n/6, 6 is the larger denominator, so it's actually the smaller number. Or 4 is the smaller denominator, so this is going to be the larger fraction. If the numerator is the same, the fraction with the smaller denominator is bigger. So thirds was bigger and fourths was bigger because they had the smaller denominator and the numerator was the same. What about with the same denominator? This is probably the easiest way to do it. You have 1/4 and 2/4. Quick look at these circles. Oh, there's 1 and now there's 2, and clearly 1/4 is going to be less than 2/4. If the denominator is the same, guys, just compare the numerators. So if I have 1 over n and 5 over n, it doesn't matter what n is as long as it's the same. I know that 5 over n is going to be greater than 1 over n, or 1 over n is less than 5 over n. Tricky one here is close to 1 whole. 7/8 is 1/8 away from being a whole, and 5/6 is 1/6 away from being a whole. So which one is bigger? Which one is smaller? Here's some circles to look at. This circle has all but 1 filled in for 8ths, and this circle has all but 1 filled in for 6ths. Well, this 6th is a larger piece than the 8th, so it's further away from 1, meaning this one's closer to 1. If the fraction's closer to 1, that means it's bigger. So 7/8 is actually greater than 5/6. 2/3 and 3/4. You make sure you got to draw these almost perfect, and you can see 3/4 down here, and 2/3, and 3/4 a little bit bigger than 2/3. So 2/3 is less than 3/4. Also, a third is a bigger piece. So if I'm 1 away from the whole, I have a bigger piece to fill than if I'm only 1 away from the whole, I'm dealing with fourths. If the numerator is 1 less than the denominator, the fraction with the larger denominator is bigger. So if you see 7/8 and 5/6, 7 is 1 away from 8, 5 is 1 away from 6. Whichever has the bigger denominator, that's the bigger number, because it has a smaller piece to fill to get to 1 whole. 7/8 is bigger than 5/6 because 8 is the larger denominator. 2/3, 2 is 1 away from 3, 3 is 1 less than 4, 4 is the larger denominator, so 3/4 is the larger fraction. I can compare fractions, so we just learned how to compare fractions in 3 different ways. Use greater than, less than, or equal to compare all 3 of these fraction sets. You have 7/8 and 5/8. That's with the same denominator. You have 2/3 and 5/6. Those are the ones that are close to one whole. And you have 3/4 and 3/6. That's with the same numerator.